And just a little bit briefly about Catherine, before we get her up. Catherine had joined the company Provencher Roy firm in 2016 and became a partner in 2021. She's developed a solid expertise in the multi-residential sector and has worked on large-scale projects for which she provides, whether it's BIM-related or multidisciplinary coordination. So we're very excited to hear her perspective and from the Quebec market and residential mass timber as well. Thank you, Catherine.
So, good afternoon, everyone. It was a really nice introduction to my project that David did. So for people who don't know, Provencher Roy is the second larger firm in architecture in Quebec, in the province of Quebec. So we are 350 architects working, and I've been introduced to mass timber construction a little bit by chance. When I joined the firm, the old, it wasn't old, but you know what I mean. The ex project manager was leaving, so I took his place, and I had no experience in residential and mass timber construction. So I had like 1 month to learn everything about high-rise residential and mass timber construction before he leaves. So it was quite a crash course, but I really enjoyed it. And what a nice project to learn about wood construction that Arbor was. So my presentation is going to be divided in 2 parts. So the first part I will describe a little bit how we developed Arbora, and you can see that it's only phase 2 and 3. Don't worry, there was a phase 1, but our office was not involved. It began in another firm, but then the project manager left the firm to go to Provencher Roy, and the client decided to follow. So that's why I started working at phase 2. So I've missed all the research and development part for the first phase, but as you will see, we continued to improve the development on every phase, every step of the project. So I've presented this project at Woodrise 4 years ago because Arbor was completed in 2019. So it's been a while, and since there was no other residential mass timber project that big or even at all in Quebec, I think. So part of my presentation is going to be about why is it so difficult to build in mass timber for residential. Because we learned a lot doing the first project, and I thought I would be able to capitalize on this learning knowledge. And since then, I haven't been working with mass timber at all. Our office did, but for really smaller project and no residential project. So I'm not gonna do a lot of talking about the Quebec context. I think everybody here knows the province, and this presentation was presented at Woodrise, so it was more like in the international context. And also we saw very good example of wood project from the history of Canada, like 100 years ago. And you know as well as me that the new technologies arrived like in 2010, as David was talking about earlier. So to put you in context, Arbor is one of the first high-rise timber residential building in Quebec, and I think it was one of the the biggest in the world for a while. I don't know if it still is, but at the time of his completion, it was the biggest in the world in terms of floor surface area. So for those who don't know the city of Montreal, it's the project is into a neighborhood that's called Griffintown, which is a former industrial neighborhood. As you can see, it's near the port and the CN railway, and it's so it was like a big neighborhood that was a little bit abandoned for a few years, and then it's been booming since the year 2000 into a lot of residential condos construction. And you can see Arbor is quite in the middle of it. And so the reason why it was made in CLT is mostly because our client, which was Sotramont, was really aware of the mass timber structure that was coming up, and he was really caring about sustainable development. So he was really pushing to do it in mass timber. It was really from his choice that we did the structure, and also because he wanted to stand out from the other projects that were building all around the Arbora, because you can see there's a lot of new buildings in this area. They are all condos, so he needed to stand out. So the project is composed of 3 buildings, and each building has 8 stories. And there's a total of 434 residential units. And the total surface area, I think it's near 600,000 square feet, which is pretty large. And beside the underground parking and the first floor that is a commercial surface, everything, even the elevator shaft, the staircases, the shear walls, everything is in CLT. And then again, you have to remember it was started in 2013, so it was quite new at the time. So in order to achieve such a project, we had to. I wasn't there, but there were a lot of discussion with the RBQ. RBQ is the government body that governs the national code in Quebec, and they established a few criteria to respect the code for fire mainly. That was a little complicated, and it led to the guide mass timber building up to 12 stories that you see. And then I think it was the first step before it was introduced in the national code. So the main criteria that we had to respect in order to be conform was the building area that could not exceed 1,500 square meters. There were sprinklers added in some areas that usually they are not required, but it was a demand from the RBQ to add some, like in the staircases. There are sprinklers at every stair landing. And also the most difficult was the maximum surface area that could not exceed 10% of apparent wood. So you will see that most of the wood in the building is covered with gypsum. And also the fire thing was one thing, but there was also some acoustic requirements. As you know, in residential, it's really high. So the minimum in the code is 45 ITS, but we had to respect 57, yeah, to because the client wanted to have really high-end condos, so it was really it was a big constraint. Um, and so all the interlocking walls, they were all covered on one side with if I mean the column the columns and the beams were covered on one side. So we decided to cover the with the acoustic feature on the side of the bedrooms, and you'll see. So all the columns are covered on one side, and they are exposed on the other side where the living room is for the other unit. So you can see here some typical plan, and you see that all the gypsum is on one side and the other side is left exposed. Also, for the acoustic, we had to cover the floor with concrete. So it was another thing that we had to hide the wood at the on the floors. And so we also had to add the acoustic membranes. So you see now the concrete is poured. Another thing, so that was for the provincial regulation, but there was also some cities regulations to meet. One of the biggest was the masonry. We in Montreal we have to have a minimum of 80% masonry on the facades in this neighborhood in particular. We could not have cantilevered balconies. We had to have setbacks at a certain height. So I think it was 12 meters high. We had to have a setback, which you know is not easy to make with CLT. And also we had a maximum height allowed for the building, which was I think 25 meters. So in order to hang the masonry, we had to have some lintels, and because we could not fix the lintels at the slab edge, we had to suspend it under each slab. So that had a lot of complexity in the project, and also a lot of cost. You can see every slab is there's a lintel. And as for the maximum height of the building, so we had 25 meters. So we were able to have 8 stories. And we did some comparison just to see what it would be if it was in concrete. At that time, you can see that because in the concrete buildings, all the ventilation is going through the slabs, so you don't lose a lot of ceiling height, which is not the case in mass timber. So we wanted to check if we were losing a floor by using mass timber. That could be the case. Sometimes it could have made a difference, but in our case, it was not making a difference. We were okay with the 25 meters to have the 8 stories. And so, because you cannot have the mechanical going through the slabs, we have to work in coordination to do the holes on the before during the fabrication. So we had to think about all the where the holes would be, and to reach a maximum height. So they were pre-drilled by Nordic. So that was quite a lot of work because we had to work with some I don't know the word in English, but gabarits. Where that's on the right, you see that that's a Nordic who supplied it to us. So we had to respect that in order not to make a have a problem with the structure. So it was because of that. It was decided pretty early in the project that we would use 3D modeling. In this case, it was Rivet to help coordination of all the elements in the building. So everybody in the project had to work with the Rivet, even even Nordic, who was not really familiar with the program. So we asked all the stakeholders to modelize everything in 3D, even every unit, every mechanical in every unit. That's not something that is usually done. Usually, the mechanical engineer will modelize one typical unit or a few typical units, but not all of them. So that was quite a work, and we had to check if everything was coordinated with the pre-drill in the structure. So you can see it's, and you know that in residential the ventilation is individual, so it multiplies the ducts, and so it became a big spaghetti. And to be sure that there will not be any problem on site, um, as I said, there was a lot of problems at the first phase, a little bit less in the second phase, and during the third phase, the Sotramont, the client, asked all the subcontractors to redo their own fabrication drawings in 3D to make sure that they would follow the pre-drilling um, uh, that was planned already. So even for the contractors, it was quite new, and it's not all the contractors in HVAC that are at this time that had the knowledge to use Rivet. So it was quite a challenge for them and for us because we had to check if their drawings were all right. And even Nordic, as I said, was not familiar, so they had to work in Rivet in order for us to check their model. And then when it was fine, they had to redraw everything in another program that they would use at to fabric the pieces. So so that's we were learning from one phase to the other, but I think in the end, at the third phase, finally I think everybody was really comfortable with the way we were working, and everybody was a little bit less worried about or we were more comfortable. We could have done a fourth one. I think it would have been perfect. So, so a few pictures during the construction. I think those pictures are my favorite because you can see all the potential of the wood. But that's, as you can see, that's the result, where you can see that the percentage of wood that is exposed is not a lot. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it's still difficult to build in wood because in residential you cannot feel it as much maybe as in other kind of project where it can be exposed a lot more like we saw yesterday. So but that was a really nice way to innovate, and I'm really glad that I was part of it. and everything is not negative, and we became a lot more efficient with the time. And as it was said before, the project was used a lot, studied a lot for by different research to compare with concrete, compare to develop the new innovations in mass timber. So it was really a big success in this area, and that's why it's so difficult to understand why there was not more residential project at this scale after that. So it's been completed 4 years ago, and still there is no other project coming up. So the second part of my presentation is a little bit more about the perception, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, and I've been trying to understand the few past year, why is it so complicated to have a new project. And I'm also part of the research chair in Université Laval on wood construction, and I meet a lot of students that are doing PhDs and masters on wood construction, and one of them is doing his PhD on the perception. So he nicely accepted that I present a part of his research that I think it brings a new perspective on things, and it's really interesting for me as an architect to understand what the people feel and think when they are into a mass timber building. So I'm just gonna do a quick overview of his PhD, because it's more complicated. But just a few words on this student. His name is Baptiste Giorgio. He has a master in architecture and in applied science, and he's really interested in comfort and social environment. And he won a lot of prizes and competition all around the world. Um, so his PhD was about he separated the PhD between two different aspects. So the user and the professional perception. And for the first one, he interviewed 400 people in the province of Quebec from various gender, age, region. And for the professional, he also did like 42 semi-structured interviews, and I was one of the 42. So mainly he was asking them about acceptance, desirability, prejudice, and for the professional, it was more focused on practice, quality, opportunities, and barriers. So if we start with the users, so you can see that the mass timber is one of the most appreciated structure system by far. So you have here the first the mass timber, and then second the concrete. And the reason why are really different. So the concrete is more, and then again, it's only perception. It's not nothing scientific. It's more like what he was asking the user, why do you prefer concrete? And they would also often answer sound comfort. That their perception is that it's not as good with mass timber. And it's not a surprise. Some of the results are really obvious, but I think it's nice to have this overview in a graph that you can see that aesthetic is it's really the biggest one, and it's quite ahead of the others. So yeah, I think maybe we have to focus on this. And by doing residential projects that are where we hide all the wood, it's not helping our cause, because people, they won't necessarily pay more if they don't see it. Another graph is about positive and negative perception. You can see it's the for the positive, it's only for mass timber, this one. So it's thermal comfort. So it was, the result was 54% of the people thought that mass timber was more comfortable in a term of thermal aspect, against 30% for the concrete. Environment, I've, I've, I've practiced this one, but I'm not gonna get it. Environmental impact considered as eco-friendly, but it's funny because they consider it eco-friendly, but Baptiste was telling me that at the same time, people thinks that the logging contributes to deforestation. So it's a little bit contradictory, because they think it's eco-friendly, but at the same time, they're quite against it. So it's really funny to hear that. But again, I think it's a question of education and the way we harvest the forest. And aesthetic, as I said, is 77% of people would like to have exposed wood in their homes. Uh, Most people think wood has a good durability in terms of time and structural strength as well, but less for high rise. I think this idea is more for a low rise and mid rise, but for high rise, the perception is not as good. People are not convinced wood is a good solution, and might feel a little bit uncomfortable in high-rise wooden building. The negative perception would be acoustic, as I said before. The question of logging that I also addressed, and the fire safety. So people tend to believe that they're not as safe in a wooden building that they would be in a concrete building. Always for residential. I rise. I talked about it, and also the majority thinks it's more expensive and that it requires more maintenance to have a wooden building, to live in a wooden building. So it has an impact as well on insurance costs, because there's a lack of information and statistics on wood. So the insurance companies tend to increase the fees for this kind of building. But I think somebody talked about it a little bit more yesterday. Now the professional perception, you'll see it's quite different. So Baptiste interviewed different stakeholders in the industry, mostly manufacturers, but also architects, engineers, and contractors. And also which is important, the clients, the public, and the private. And it shows that you see, knowledge and experience of wood increases the preference for its use. So I think it's, again, a question of education. And there was two aspects that were considered in this research. So on the left, you see a graph that shows what the topics were that were spontaneously brought in the conversation. So he didn't ask the question, but the people just talked about it instinctively. And on the other side, it's the negative or positive results. So you see the expertise, even though it's increasing, there's still a lack of formation, and it leads to a perception that the use of mass timber complexifies a lot the development of the projects, and favor the more established practices. So that means that we tend to do always the same recipe because there's no risk, and it's everybody feels more comfortable. That's a human way of living, I guess. But if we want to innovate, I think we have to educate people and share the knowledge more. The material specification. So to be able to specify what wood, especially in the public projects, we have to specify a product that can come from at least three different supplier. So I think it's a problem for the contractors that there's not enough suppliers sometimes to or maybe or even for the client that they cannot use mass timber because for the public project, for example, they cannot find three different suppliers, so they it's against the not the law but the regulation in the province. So the regulation still that we use as you know, we use the Canadian Building Code, but we have our own version that is a little bit more severe. So I think it would be a good thing if we could at least get the same permissions that the Canadian code has, because it would help this type of construction in Quebec, because it is less permissive. Manufacturing company, I talked about it, and the cost as well. It was a big negative point in the perceptions of the professional. So you can see it. Some points are still. I think the people are. The professional. They see the potential in aesthetic of wood and all, but I think it has to be more promoted. And environmental values. It's considered mass timber is considered ecological because it's a renewable resource, but it has to be through a local supply, as we saw yesterday with the Limberlost, with the wood that was coming from Shibugamo, which is quite a long way. So maybe by multiplying the manufacturer, it would help this aspect. So what's the future for residential mass timber? So according to the study, I've tried to do like a combine both results. So my experience with Arbora and as well as the study. And I think what the conclusion is, we have to share the knowledge. And I've heard yesterday that there's a new program in the university in Quebec that is really focused on wood structure. So I think that's the kind of the thing that will help to develop this aspect and build more projects. And as it was said before, the more we're going to build with wood, the easier it's going to get, I guess. So I hope that I will be able to come back maybe in a couple of years to present another project. I really like Arbora, but it's been 4 years now, and I would really like to work on another one. So, but we're working on other mass timber projects, as you can see. They are under conceptions, and I don't really have the right to say what they are. But as you can see, they're not residential, and I became more involved in residential. So I'm waiting for another one to come up. So thanks a lot, and sorry for my English.
Thank you so much, Catherine. We have time for one question, if there's a question from the audience. Go ahead.
I have a question.
I can hear.
Thank you. I'm not from here, I'm from the Netherlands. So I have a question because there was a kind of Giorgio. How long does it go? How long time was it?
There was
that you made that search. How long does it go?
You mean the PhD?
Yeah, the PhD.
I think it's 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah, he's finishing now. He's gonna publish. Yeah,
That's what I want to say. That's how many people did he interview?
400 users and 42 professional.
Okay.
I think if I can go back, I can show you. Sorry.
And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why is wood so important for you?
For me?
Yeah.
Because I believe in sustainable development. And I think I'm also really sensible to the aesthetic of wood. So, yeah. And I think as an architect from Quebec, we have such a big forest. We have the material, and we just have to use it. It's there.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that a lot of people that know more knowledge about timber, mass timber, and I think that the new generation is going to do it. They have to do it because they are very important for the next era.
Yeah.
They are very important.
I think so.
That's why it is so difficult. I guess so. Because also I was thinking that it's very
Yeah. But it's completed.
Yeah, okay.
And we have now the knowledge, and I think doing another one, it would be much easier and faster and more efficient, because we did our mistakes during the process. So
Yeah, well, it's very, when you do architecture, it's because you're 100 years.
yeah.
Change.
Yeah.
So we are living in the growth, and people that want to have some houses, it's very nice, but the houses that we saw, but that we see, it was not a real one. It was just.
Yeah, but now it's real. I can tell you, people are living in it. I showed just the conceptual images, but there was a few pictures, I think, of the inside of the condos as well. Yeah. But you come to Montreal and you can visit it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Catherine.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.